So my name is Jürgen Daunis. I'm responsible for sales for connected cars at Ericsson. And I want to talk about peak hardware and gear up for the connected vehicle ecosystem. So what do we mean with that? Why are we doing it? And then also I want to talk about the how. So how can we implement that? And actually I can add on to the speaker we just had on stage is exactly the same topic. And now we will talk a little bit about, from a probably more generic point of view as an Ericsson, how we can enable other OEMs that has not implemented that so far on this path. So I mean, what's happening in general in the industry? It took a long time to connect 1 billion places, so the homes, right? And then the next wave, we connected the mobile phones, the user. And then the next wave that we are in right now is the IoT wave, and we are connecting everything. So you will have sensors in your car, you will have sensors in your body, in your pet, in your kid, I don't know. So we're kind of connecting everything. And what does this mean? It's a huge amount of mobile devices, IoT devices that we are connecting. And I mean, most of the solutions that are out there today, they're handling 100,000 devices, 1 million devices. But now we're talking about 25 billion, 100 billion devices that we need to connect. And from an operational perspective, I think we need to manage this a little bit differently than historically with this low volume use cases. And that's exactly where Ericsson is since 140 years, that we are actually in the business of connecting places, people, and devices. So that's why we think we are quite relevant for scaling up solutions, infrastructures to operate these kind of scenarios. So what's going on in the industry? And we have talked a lot about this the last 2 days, yesterday, today. So there's a lot of megatrends going on in the transportation industry, in the automotive industry. So one is connectivity. I think it's a given. It's a baseline for all this business transformation that we are talking about. It's the electrification. We get kind of rid of the powertrain. A lot of competence is not relevant anymore, right? We have new players that shows up that just build a car around the battery with a little bit of IT on top of that. We have automation, autonomous driving. I mean, we all talk about this now for a long time, and it will take a while before we have it. But what does it mean for the car architecture, for the infrastructure, for the connectivity infrastructure? There's a lot of tricky things we need to sort out. And then new business models. New business models will emerge, arise more and more. It will transfer, it will change from the traditional business models that we had for 100 years, and now it's completely different. And I will talk a little bit about it in a while. But with these challenges, we also have opportunities, of course. So the software-defined car is the opportunity. Today, we have probably 100 ECUs. In the future, we'll be more impressed if we only have 2, right? So we need to consolidate. The car needs to be kind of a computer with a central processing power, and then, decrease the number of ECUs. Then ITS, multidimensional infrastructure. We need to cooperate and federate different islands of functionality in different cities, countries in the world, in different functional areas. ITS is one. So all of this needs to come together to enable an autonomous driving car. It's not only the car that works autonomously, it's also connecting the car to the wider ecosystem and let the car be part of a bigger transportation or surrounding system. Then the emerge of the connected automated mobility, we talked about that a lot yesterday and today. And then the multi-industry ecosystem, that's again the federation of the different topics that we need to bring together to enter this new world of opportunities. So all this together, we think it's the biggest change since the Ford Model T for the industry. It's a lot of disruption that's happening, and we talked about that a lot. So what does automotive executives think about that? And I think this is quite impressive. 82% of the executives of automotives consider a major business model disruption very likely, up where it was only 12% last year regarding to KPMG. And then also the automotive, to a high extent, agree that the digital ecosystem will generate higher revenue than the hardware in the car. So if you think back to the presentation from Rightcell, for example, I think they had a number of 4 to 5 times the value we will generate by 2025, 2030, comparing to the value that we have today or in the future with the hardware of the car. So all that together, we talk about that we're approaching the peak of the importance of the hardware revenue for the profits of the automotive industry. So that's what we mean with peak hardware. So from now, the value of the service will increase more and more, and it will take over and will be much bigger than the traditional hardware sales. But of course, the consequence of that is that now we need to change also the way how we do business and how we prepare our systems to support this transformation into this new service business. So what is needed from an OEM perspective, from an ecosystem perspective, to make this vision real? So if you think about the involving of the telematics or infotainment telematics that we talk about this conference now for 15 years. So what is happening? So it all began with the OnStar or Tele8 model 15, 20 years ago, where a customer pays for a service. So it's a subscription-based model. You pay for value. For example, eCall, bCall, remote door unlock. So as a user, you experience the service as such, and then you pay for that. It's a traditional subscription model. Then Telematics 2.0 is pretty much where the value is for the OEM. And OEMs like BMW started quite early to see that value and invested centrally into the platforms. And then you can do a remote update of a car. You can have a stickiness to the customer. So, I mean, usually you sell the car, you never see the driver until it's a maintenance problem or he has a problem, then he goes back to the dealership, but then it's a negative experience usually because you have a problem with the car, right? So now, being connected, first time you have a back channel to your customer, and you can actually do upsell, cross-sell, reference sell, increase stickiness, increase and improve the user experience around the car. So it's a huge value for the OEM, and therefore, usually in this business model, the OEM will put some money into the system to build these infrastructures. But Telematics 1.0 and 2.0 is pretty much history. I mean, the most OEMs are still in between 1 and 2. And now we're talking about Telematics 3.0, and that's really unlock the ecosystem. This is really where we generate value around the traditional OEM business. And having multiple dimensions, new opportunities for business generation, mobility services, but also autonomous driving. All of that is based on the openness of the ecosystem. So you will have a multitude of new business models that you can enable, that you can do. So at Ericsson, we talk about the connected vehicle cloud. And cloud is not meant necessarily as the cloud as such, as the operation cloud. It's more meant that we're connecting the ecosystem, all the parties that are relevant to the car, to the OEM platform. So traditionally, what we need to do is now we need to open the OEM platforms and connect them one-to-one to all the parties around. So one example could be an insurance company, and BMW and others talked about that earlier. So you're doing a one-to-one integration with an insurance company, and then you enable UBI based on the car data. So you don't have to plug in a ODB port device anymore. Another example would be energy and utility. So then you can connect the car to an energy provider to charge the car for an EV and so on. So there are a couple of use cases, but it's pretty much really connecting the car to the wider ecosystem. That's what we mean with the connected vehicle cloud. And as Ericsson, of course, we have all the technology as a service or from a product perspective to support you and support OEMs to implement that and to make this vision a reality. But that's not good enough. That's the starting point. So why are we doing that? Why is it relevant to go beyond, to do more than that? So our prediction from Gartner is that by 2020, the perceived value of IoT is around about $2 trillion US dollar, 1.9 trillion US dollar. That's a huge number, right? That's a huge number. And the second comment is that 50% out of that will be generated by companies that are less than 3 years old. So if you combine that, and if you think about the length of an OEM program to onboard a partner, do you think these OEMs can handle the onboarding of startups that only have a year or two in the business? So we need to be much more self-registered, faster, to allow the ecosystem to run their business independent of a heavy onboarding program that you usually have when working with OEMs. Because the startup will be out of business before they start service and making any money if they follow the traditional way. So we need to be much more agile, faster to do that. So how do we do that? So we all have mobile phones, right? So I think just heard in Germany, the cost for the new iPhone is starting with 1,000 euros. 1,000 euros. So if I take away the App Store, what's the value of this phone? 1,000 euros? Probably not. So the point here is that the value comes with what we call long tail. That's the application, that's the ecosystem, the surrounding ecosystem that really brings the value to the device. And if you transfer this into the automotive industry, it's the same. I mean, the car is, of course, it's huge value. But then from a lifetime perspective, the real value comes with the ecosystem, the long tail applications surrounding the center of the car. Of course, still you have the short tail and the core. The core are the applications that the OEMs will develop anyway in-house, like a remote door unlock or a navigation system or something, right? You will always do that. But usually you have a 2, 3, 4, 5-year lead time to develop a new platform, a new system before it goes into the car. The short tail is onboarding the ecosystem. So you can do this with bigger companies in a one-to-one approach, well, what we have seen from BMW, right? So you select your partner and you integrate with the content or the business model with your partner on a one-to-one basis. But you can only do this if you have some scale, if you have a mature business, traffic information or something like that, right? You cannot do this with a startup. And then the long tail is really the majority of the value in the future will be generated. And this needs to happen in a very different way as we do it traditionally from starting a project, onboarding, executing a service, and then monetize. So what is important here? So how can we differentiate what is needed? What do we need to put in place to make this successful? So differentiate via ease of service integration. It will be pivotal that it's easy for a company to integrate with your service. You need to lower the barrier. Enable non-automotive service providers. I mean, traditionally, the OEM and the tier ones are quite used to each other, but now you have completely different industries that have no idea about the automotive industry, and they want to run their business independently based on your system. So how do you enable that? How do you allow that? And then improve monetization for the life cycle of the vehicle. It's not about one-time sell, it's about monetizing really on the service that you will launch after the car sold. So now let's switch a little bit to the how after we talked about the why and what. So we have launched the connected vehicle marketplace in Barcelona in February, March this year with Scania One as the first reference customer on the platform. And the connected vehicle marketplace is our answer to enable and to help OEMs to build this easy integration to the outside world. So it's kind of a wrapper layer around their telematics platform to expose data to the outside to enable the ecosystem. So it comes with 4 functions. One is the orchestration of the vehicle data so that you in a controlled, secure manner can expose data to different user groups. So you can have a category 1 user group, 2, 3, whatsoever, and then you expose the data in a controlled manner to the outside. Then the consent management of data. BMW talked about this in the last presentation. I think it's vital, also with the new data regulation law that we will get it next year in Europe. It's very important that if you generate a service, that the user give consent that actually you can use his data. It needs to be automated. The partner management needs to be automated. It's not sustainable that you start an integration project and have a discussion. It needs to be a download of APIs, and then you just use the server without even talking to an OEM. And then the billing and settlement, I mean, a multi-directional business flow. There could be a case where actually the OEM pays for data that is generated outside the ecosystem. It could be the other way around, that the ecosystem pays for data. UBI is an example, right? So UBI will get data from an OEM, and in return, they might pay something for the data they're getting from the OEM. And yeah, and then of course you also have the user that might also pay for a service. And the payment from the user might live in this system, or it might live in an application that you use for a delivery service, for example. So these are the 4 vital components that we believe are important to enable you to expose data to the outside. It needs to be automated. So think about a little bit like a Facebook developer approach. So you can go there as a developer without even talking to Facebook. You download the API, you accept the T's and C's, you have a kind of a payment monetization aspect that comes with the T's and C's you have to accept. And then you just start and build your business. So one example is a UBI. So probably for a bigger insurance company, they can go and integrate one-to-one to BMW, Daimler, Audi, and then they have enough size to do that. But there are 2,000 or 3,000 other UBI companies out there, or insurance companies out there. So do you really want to do this on an end-to-end basis? No. So then, as an insurance company, as one example, you just sign up for all the APIs to the different OEMs, and you build your application completely independent, and you just get the information from the different sources. So today, we do this already, or some OEMs are doing this already, but only on a one-to-one basis, not really on an open system basis. And we believe we need to change that. And that's actually what we also have done in other industry, like the telco industry. It's quite common that you have to build these kind of ecosystems. Another good example is the delivery company or traffic information in a city. I mean, do you really think it's sustainable to integrate with all the cities in the world for every OEM, or the other way around? Delivery services is highly fragmented. It's different topics in different cities. And so you really need to turn this around and not integrate into your system. You need to expose and then let the ecosystem do their business independently and integrate into your system. So what is important to make this happen? What are the key challenges or the key driver for success here? So you need to access the largest and widest variety of data for the vehicle driver and environment. So you need to be as open as possible. And then you need to be as fast as possible. Because a lot of the business, if you think about startups, you need to make some money in a quarter or in a year. You cannot do this for 5 years. You run out of cash. So you need to be fast. And then the message I want to conclude my presentation is that, of course, that's exactly what we can help you to do. As an Ericsson, we have all the technology in-house and capabilities. We've done this multiple times for other industries. And we also have first reference customers in the automotive industry. And that's actually where, when you're interested and you have not already implemented all of that, we're very happy you speak to us, contact us, and then we can have a dialogue to help you on this transformation into the new value of the connected car. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, I haven't actually checked to see if there were any questions that came in. Yeah, you've got time for one or two. Do you want to pick, or shall I choose one at random?
Yeah, sure. Probably the second one. What advice would you give to OEMs to faster supplier onboarding? So I think the paradigm change that we need to do as an industry is that you break a little bit with the tendency to do everything in-house. You should learn from other industries that have done this before and build an open ecosystem so that you allow this, this enablement of the new services, and you not do this like a traditional way. You write a specification, you select a partner, and then it takes 5 years before you have, well, 2 years before you have it. So I think the key is that you enable a flexible open system, and then the onboarding just happens outside your system. And you should partner more and not try to build everything in-house, because the problems are the same that the industry have already solved in a couple of other industries.
I think we might take one quick one, and then might have to go outside to take questions.
The first one, do we also work with tier ones? Yes, of course we also work with tier ones. Our main focus is, of course, with the automotive industry directly, with the OEMs. We also are open to work with tier ones. We also work with carriers or partners. So we're quite flexible to help wherever it makes sense.